All right, today we're going to talk about this kind of funky shape. It's called a trapezoid. What makes a trapezoid is that it just has one pair of parallel sides. So you have one pair of lines here that are never going to meet. They're going to go on forever into space. These ones eventually will crisscross. So a trapezoid could look like this, kind of like a door wedge. It could look like this. This is an isosceles trapezoid. These two lines are parallel. They're never going to hit. These ones eventually would come together. You could have a trapezoid that's a little bit more angled, that's not isosceles. So a trapezoid just means opposite side. There's one pair of opposite sides that are parallel. Okay, so we're going to take a look at this right trapezoid today. And it's called a right trapezoid because it has this right angle. There's actually two of them here. It almost looks like someone was about to make a rectangle and then they just, they gave up. Okay, so we need to find the area of this shape. And I keep coming back to the original formula for a rectangle is always the base times the height, or you can write it with just a dot. All right, base times height. And I know the base here, I know the height here, but I don't have a whole rectangle. So if I wanted to find the area of a trapezoid, I have to think a little bit outside the box here, outside the trapezoid, and I have to create a rectangle. So I can think about like, all right, if I had an equal piece that kind of went around the outside here, I'd have a rectangle and I could cut it in half, kind of like we did with a triangle. All right, so let's do that. Let's duplicate that trapezoid there. All right, I'm gonna, oh, duplicated, perfect. All right, I'm gonna flip this over and check this out. Now I have a rectangle, and I know the area of this rectangle is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 by 4. And 10 times 4 is 40, and I just want half of that. So the area of this trapezoid is half of 40, which is just 20. Now, could you cut this here and find the triangle and the rectangle? Sure, you could do that. But we want to find a way to find out every single trapezoid. All right, so I'm going to label this height because this is still the height. Let me switch pens here so that we can see it a little bit better. All right, let's label this the height. All right, and I'm going to call this one base 1. I'm going to call this one base 2 because when I duplicate that and flip it over, check out what happens. I have base 1, that's the smaller end, ends up flipped down over here, and base 2, this bigger end, ends up here. All right, and so if I want to find the area of a trapezoid, I have to put both of those edges together. I have to have base 1 and base 2 together. That's adding them up. And then I want to multiply that times the height because that gives me the area of this whole rectangle. I want to multiply both of those things times the height. And the last thing we did, we cut it in half. So you can write divided by 2, or you can just do half out here times all of that. Okay, so this is the actual formula for the area of a trapezoid. It's half of the height times whatever the bases added up together are. And that works for any trapezoid. So if I have a trapezoid that looks like this, all right, I have my height's a little bit harder to see here because this slope part is not a height. The height is actually here inside the shape. And I could count it. It's 1, 2, it's 3 tall. All right, so my height is here. I still have a base 1, I have a base 2, and I have my height now. I have all the things I need. I could just plug that right into this formula right now. I could do a half times, the height is 3, times whatever base 1 and base 2 are. Well, base 1 is 1, 2, 3, 4, and base 2 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if I add those up, I should get the rest of my formula. 4 plus 8 is 12, and 12 times 3 is 36, and half of that would give me 18. So I could check it. I'm going to duplicate this one. I'll flip it over here. This looks like a familiar shape, right? We have our parallelogram from before, and the parallelogram, it was the base, right? The whole base times the height. I don't want the whole base times the height. I want to cut this in half, or with our parallelogram, we wanted to cut it and make it into a rectangle, right? So when I'm talking about base times height, I'm talking about this whole length here, all right? The base 2 plus the base 1, but with a trapezoid, we only want half of it, okay? So if this works for any trapezoid, could be an isosceles trapezoid, could be a right trapezoid, okay? But you have this kind of crazy formula. That formula comes from our original formula of a rectangle, which is just simply base times height, okay? Or our formula for a parallelogram, which is still base times height. That's where those formulas come from, okay? So you need to think about kind of having that shape duplicated and flipped over. That's where the formula comes from. If you got this, you're good to go. All right. Have a great day.